I just used your card for a bill. My mom lied. 12 hours later, my account was empty. $4,600. Gone. Dad smirked. Charity, he said. I just did the one quiet thing. At 9 a.m., Mom opened her Gmail app and screamed so loud the neighbors came outside. A month before everything went to hell, I was home for my mom's birthday. We went to lunch, just the two of us, like old times. She picked a place I could barely afford, but I said nothing. I figured, fine once a year. She ordered appetizers, cocktails, dessert, the whole thing. When the check came, she gave me this innocent look and said, I left my wallet in the car. I handed her my card. She walked up to the counter to pay. I watched her slip the card into her purse instead of handing it back. I didn't say anything. Later that night, I realized it wasn't in my wallet. I texted her. She said she found it in her purse by accident and would bring it when she saw me next. I believed her. It was easier to believe than to assume anything darker. Weeks passed. I didn't ask again. I had Apple Pay on my phone. I wasn't using the physical card anyway. I told myself she probably just forgot. Then came that Saturday. I was lying in bed when I got the text from her. Hey, I just used your card for a bill. We'll transfer it back Monday. Love you. It felt off. Normally, she'd at least ask first. But I tried not to overthink it. I told myself maybe it was a power bill or something. $80, $100 at most. I was annoyed, but not shocked. Still, something kept bugging me all day. Around 10 p.m., I gave in and opened my banking app. $12.33. My stomach dropped. I refreshed the screen twice, hoping it was a glitch. Then, I opened the transaction history. There were 3 massive withdrawals. $1,800, $1,200, $1,600. All listed as AC transfers. All spaced out by a few hours. All on the same day. I stared at the screen for a while before calling her. No answer. I texted her. Nothing. Called my dad. Straight to voicemail. I barely slept. I sat there all night refreshing my bank account like the numbers might change. At some point, I messaged my friend Theo. He's a lawyer. I just needed to know what my options were. I sent him screenshots, told him the card had been in her possession for a while, that I never gave permission for those transfers. He didn't ask questions. He just said, forward me the full transaction list and their email addresses. Sunday morning, I drove over. I didn't warn them. I still had a spare key. Their car was in the driveway, so I let myself in. I sat on the couch and waited. It was just after 8:30 a.m. At exactly 9 o'clock, I heard the vibration from her phone on the end table. She'd gotten a Gmail notification. She picked it up, opened it, and screamed. A real guttural scream. Within seconds, I heard voices outside. The neighbors came out onto their porches. One of them even walked up to the door and knocked to make sure everything was okay. My mom didn't answer the door. She was frozen, staring at her phone. My dad came in from the kitchen and asked what was going on. She handed him the phone. He read the screen and let out a dry laugh. Charity, he muttered, shaking his head. That's when I knew they hadn't used the money for any emergency. They weren't behind on bills. They weren't in danger of losing the house. They took it because they could. I said nothing, just watched. What she had just read was a formal demand letter sent by Theo, addressed to both of them. It laid out the unauthorized use of my account, the fact that the card had been in her possession without permission, and the total amount withdrawn. It gave them 72 hours to return every cent or face civil court. She didn't scream because she felt guilty. She screamed because someone called her out. After the scream, after the neighbors stepped back inside their homes whispering, God knows, my mom just stood there frozen, clutching her phone like it had burned her. My dad read the email, gave her a look that said, I told you so, and then turned to me. He smiled. Not a warm smile. One of those smug little expressions people make when they think they still have control over the room. Come on, Nina. Don't make this dramatic. That was the first thing either of them said to me. I didn't speak. I wasn't going to plead for my own money. I wasn't going to argue about what they had done. I just waited. My mom finally snapped out of it and launched into a speech, not an apology, not an explanation, a speech about how hard things had been lately, how money was tight, how I never understood what it's like to be responsible for a family. She said that yes, maybe it was wrong not to ask, but it's not like they stole it. They just used what was already in the family. That was the moment I realized this wasn't going to be a mistake they admitted to. They genuinely thought they had the right. When I didn't respond, my mom switched tactics. She got louder, said she had planned to pay me back, that I had no right to go airing our dirty laundry and sicking a lawyer on her, that what I did was disrespectful, aggressive, ungrateful. She said the worst part of all of this wasn't the money. It was that I turned against my own parents. I asked her one question, "Where's my card?" She blinked, said she wasn't sure. Maybe it was in a drawer somewhere. I didn't believe her. I walked into the kitchen and pulled open the drawer we always used for junk, old batteries, pens, loose change, and there it was. My card, right under a Bed Bath & Beyond flyer. I picked it up. She followed me and tried to say something about how she meant to give it back, but I just turned and walked out. She followed me to the door, shouting after me, saying I was blowing this out of proportion. By the time I got home, I had 9 missed calls from her, 5 from my dad, and 2 from unknown numbers. Then came a text, "Don't ruin this family over a misunderstanding. Talk to us first before doing something stupid. You think a lawyer is going to fix this?" I didn't respond to any of them. I blocked both of them and the unknown numbers. An hour later, I got a call from my uncle, my mom's brother. We don't talk often, but he's always been decent. Not like the rest of the family. I let it ring once, then answered. He didn't waste time. "Hey, I just left your parents' house. What's going on?" Apparently, one of the neighbors had called him after hearing the screaming. Told him something serious had happened. He went over to check. My mom was hysterical. My dad was stone-faced. Neither of them would tell him the whole truth. So I did. I told him about the card, the text, the withdrawals, the way they went silent when I confronted them, and how they turned on me the second a lawyer got involved. There was a long silence after I finished. Then he said, "You need to file a police report. Even if they don't act, it creates a record. You don't want them turning this around and making it look like you gave them permission." I already knew he was right. I told him I'd do it the same day, and I did. I printed out the bank statement, the text from my mom, and a screenshot of the demand email Theo had sent. I went to the station around 5:30 p.m. It was quiet. I told the officer at the desk that I needed to report unauthorized withdrawals by a family member. He didn't look impressed. Asked me a few questions, wrote some things down, then said, "This sounds like something civil, not criminal." I asked him point blank, if someone I don't know takes my card and uses it without permission, it's theft. But if my mother does it, it's just a family matter? He didn't answer, just gave me a form and told me they'd keep it on record. I left with a case number. That was enough. When I got home, I called Theo, told him what happened. He didn't waste a second. That night, just before midnight, he filed a civil claim. The next morning, I got an email. It was from Theo. My parents were officially being sued. They were going to be served within 48 hours. I didn't know it then, but what happened after that, the phone calls, the begging, the threats, the secrets, that was the real beginning. They got served Tuesday morning. I found out 2 hours later when my mom called from a number I didn't recognize. I picked up without thinking. I figured it might be someone from work. The moment I heard her voice, shaky and crying, I almost hung up. She didn't even say hi. She jumped straight into it. "Nina, what are you doing? You didn't have to do this. You could have just talked to us." I stayed quiet. She kept going. She said it was humiliating, that the neighbors saw the guy hand them the papers, and now everyone thinks they're criminals. Then she hit me with a line I didn't expect. "I already told you I'd pay it back. What else do you want from us?" Like I was squeezing them for money they didn't know. Like I was the unreasonable one. I told her to speak to Theo, my lawyer. Then I hung up. I blocked the number 5 minutes later. By the afternoon, my phone started ringing again. This time it was my dad. I didn't pick up. He kept calling. 5 missed calls in under 30 minutes. I finally answered on the 6th. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He spoke like he was closing a business deal. Calm, rehearsed. He said what happened was ugly but fixable, and that he was willing to make things right. But I needed to call off the lawsuit before things went too far. Then came the warning, tucked quietly into a sentence like it didn't mean anything. You know, these things don't just hurt us, they hurt you, too. You'll regret dragging your family name through court. That was when I realized he was never afraid of being wrong. He was afraid of being publicly wrong. I didn't respond. I just ended the call. That night, he showed up outside my apartment. He stood at the door for a long time, knocked, called my name, said he just wanted to talk. Then, when I didn't answer, he said something that made my blood run cold. You're not going to win this. It's your word against ours. Be smart. I didn't open the door, but I recorded everything. I sent the audio to Theo. 10 minutes later, he called me. He threatened you. That's not nothing. I wasn't scared exactly. Not of him. But I was angry, in a way that felt heavy, like I was done playing defense. Theo asked again if I wanted to settle, if they offered. I didn't answer. I still hadn't decided. The next day, I went to work like normal. Around noon, my boss pulled me aside. They'd gotten a voicemail from someone accusing me of misusing company funds and being investigated for fraud. I work in marketing. I don't touch client money. It was nonsense. But they said they still had to report the incident internally. I sat through that whole conversation without reacting. But I already knew who did it. Only 2 people knew where I worked, and only one of them had stood outside my door, talking about how I wouldn't win. Later that night, I called my uncle. He'd been quiet since the day I filed the report. He didn't even sound surprised when I told him about it. He said my mom and dad were telling people a very different version of the story. I asked what they'd been saying. He hesitated, then told me straight. They were telling family that I offered to help pay a bill, then turned it into a lawsuit to make them look bad, that I misunderstood something small and overreacted. They were rewriting the story, not just to save face, but to make me the villain. My uncle said he tried to push back, but most people didn't want to hear it. A few told him they believed me. The rest just didn't want to get involved. Before we hung up, he said, "You need to finish what you started, because if you drop this now, they'll just do it again." He was right. By Friday, Theo forwarded me the reply from their attorney. It was a joke, full of vague statements about verbal consent and confusion between parties. No mention of the amount or the missing card, or why I wasn't even contacted when the money was taken. Then Theo asked again if they offered to settle. "Do you want to take it?" This time, I didn't even blink. No, I want a judge to hear every word. The court date was set, a real one on the calendar, a week away. I didn't tell anyone, not even my friends. I kept working like nothing was happening, but my mind was in one place. I thought about every second of that stupid lunch where I handed her my card, about how confident they were that I'd back down, about the voicemail to my job, the look on my dad's face when he said, "You won't win." And then, 4 days before the hearing, something strange happened. My mom texted me from another new number. But this time, no drama, no sob story, just one line. "Can we talk?" Just coffee. No tricks. Please. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't want to go, but I was curious. And honestly, I wanted to look her in the face and see what she had left to say. We met at a small cafe halfway between our houses. I got there early and picked a seat facing the door. She came in late, looking like she hadn't slept. No makeup. No show. She sat down and didn't order anything. She pulled a letter from her bag, typed, signed, a formal apology. Said she took the money without permission. Said she regretted it. Said she'd return every cent. I didn't touch it. Then she pulled out a check. It was made out to me. For $4,600. The exact amount. I didn't touch that either. I asked her, "Why now?" She looked at me and said, "Because if this goes to court, your dad will lose everything. His job, his retirement. You'll ruin him." Not "we did a terrible thing." Not "I'm sorry for what we put you through." Just "you'll ruin him." I slid the paperback toward her, told her the money wasn't the point anymore, that they crossed a line they couldn't walk back from. She didn't argue. She just sat there, stared at me, and said, "Then you should know something." That's when she pulled out something else, a manila folder. Inside were printed screenshots, emails from me, private stuff, messages I'd sent friends, old saved drafts, even a screenshot of a personal note I kept in my cloud storage, stuff she should not have had access to. I felt the blood drain from my face. I asked where she got them. She said nothing, just smiled a little. I walked out. Later that night, I called Theo and told him everything. I emailed him scans of the pages she showed me. He didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he said something that changed everything. "Your parents didn't just take your money. They've been spying on you." He explained that what I'd shown him, especially that private note from my cloud, meant they'd either hacked into my email or somehow accessed my old devices. That this wasn't just civil anymore. It was criminal. Identity theft, wire fraud, cybercrime. He asked me if I'd ever logged into my accounts from their house. I had once. I used their old desktop computer while visiting for Christmas the year before just to check my email. They could have saved the login info, accessed everything. He told me to file a second police report. I did it the next morning, and that changed the whole case. When the new report hit the system, the court filing expanded. It wasn't just about unauthorized use of a debit card anymore. Now, it included digital theft, computer crimes. That same day, Theo sent me an update. Their lawyer had gone silent. 3 hours later, I got an email from my dad. No greeting, no sign-off, just this: "You've made your point. You win. But don't expect to be our daughter after this." I read it twice, then deleted it. By Monday, we had a settlement offer. Not just for $4,600. They added another $2,000 for damages, plus an agreement in writing that they'd never contact me again. I signed it. And that was it. 2 days later, the money hit my account. My card was reissued. My uncle texted me one line: "They're pretending none of it happened." Of course they were. But what happened next, that was the real twist. 3 weeks after everything ended, my mom called again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. She said she was sick. Not fake sick, something serious. She said my dad wanted to talk, said they needed help. And I listened to the whole message without feeling anything. It had been 3 weeks of peace. No texts, no phone calls, no surprise visits. I'd started sleeping better. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes. I even went an entire day without thinking about them. And then the voicemail came. It was my mom's voice, smaller, strained, like she was trying not to cry. She said she'd had some tests done, that the results weren't good. Something about a mass, something about more scans needed. She said my dad wanted to speak to me. And then came the part one was expecting. "We're hoping you can help." I didn't delete it. I didn't respond either. I just sat there for a long time, staring at my phone like it might start explaining itself, because somewhere in that voice, sick or not, was the same woman who looked me in the eye after stealing from me and called it family business. The next day, I got an email from my dad. Just one line: "We need your help with treatment costs. Don't ignore us." No context, no attachment, no mention of what they did or what they put me through, just an assumption that I'd jump back into the role they'd written for me. But I wasn't that person anymore. I didn't respond. I called Theo instead. He didn't even hesitate. He said there was no legal obligation, that their medical bills, their situation, their silence, none of it was my responsibility. Then he said something I haven't stopped thinking about since. This was always about control. When they couldn't guilt you, they tried to scare you. And now they're trying sympathy. It's just another tactic. He wasn't being cold, he was being honest. But it still made me feel like garbage. Not because I felt guilty. I didn't. But because they were betting on me feeling guilty. 3 days passed. Then my uncle showed up. No call, no text, just a knock on my door like it was 1999 and people still dropped by unannounced. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him, Like this whole thing had aged him too. He didn't stay long. Just said he wanted to talk, and I let him. We sat at my kitchen table, and he said, "She really is sick. Stage 2, something in the liver. Not terminal yet. Treatment possible, but expensive." Then he told me something I didn't expect. "They thought this would bring you back." He didn't say it like it was a plan they came up with. He said it like it was a quiet hope they were clinging to, that getting sick might erase everything. He told me they were struggling, that my dad had already started selling off some assets, that their savings were mostly gone, that they were telling everyone I wasn't ready to forgive yet. That phrasing stuck with me. Wasn't ready to forgive, like forgiveness was overdue. Like I had some moral clock ticking inside me. He said they weren't going to ask again, that if I didn't step up, they were going to cut ties for good. I told him I wasn't afraid of that anymore. He nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't push. He just said, "I think they hoped you'd be the bigger person, even if they weren't." And then he left. 2 days later, they made good on the threat. I got removed from the family Facebook group. My name disappeared from the shared calendar we'd used for holidays. My cousin texted me, asking why I wasn't listed as next of kin on the medical update email thread. I told her to ask my parents. Then the block came, phone, everything. No final message. No dramatic goodbye. Just silence. It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. Because for the first time in my life, I was finally outside their reach. No guilt, no obligation, no more parts to play. Just me. Free. It's been 9 months. Not a word from either of them. No messages, no emails, no apologies, no "we were wrong." Not even a passive-aggressive birthday text, which for my mom was practically tradition. When they cut me off, they meant it. It was clean, final, precise. Like slicing a page out of a book and pretending it was never there. At first, I expected it to feel like grief. I waited for the wave to hit. I braced for those quiet mornings when the silence would feel heavier than their presence ever did. But those mornings never came. I kept waiting to feel loss, real loss, but it didn't show up. What came instead was a kind of peace I'd never known in that house. A stillness that didn't ask for anything in return. And I realized something brutal but honest. I didn't miss them. I missed the version of them I had invented to survive them. I missed the parents I imagined when I was younger, the ones who would one day say, "We're proud of you," and mean it. The ones who would apologize and not follow it with, "But you have to understand," the ones who would care more about me than about control. Those parents never existed. And when I finally stopped chasing them, when I stopped giving chances they never earned, my entire life changed. I moved out of state, got a better job, opened a new bank account at a different institution with 2-step verification, new passwords, the whole thing. I had every device wiped clean. No trace of shared Apple IDs, no saved logins, nothing they could accidentally stumble across again. I even changed my emergency contacts at the hospital just in case. They don't know where I live now, and they never will. My uncle still checks in sometimes. Quietly. He doesn't ask questions, just sends a short message every few weeks to say he hopes I'm okay. I appreciate that more than he knows. But even he told me, after everything happened, you may never get closure from them. You might have to give it to yourself. He was right. I heard through him that my mom's still in treatment, that my dad had to take on consulting work again to cover the bills. Apparently, they tried to sell the house, but the market's bad, and they didn't get what they wanted. They told everyone they lost touch with me, that I got angry over a misunderstanding and chose distance. They leave out the court case, the theft, the threats, the HR sabotage. But sure, a misunderstanding. The last thing I ever received from them was an old box that arrived without a return address, sometime around month 5. Inside were some childhood photos, a school project I'd done in 5th grade, and a note with 5 words written in my dad's handwriting. "You made your choice. Goodbye." No signature. No date. I sat with that box for hours, trying to feel something bigger. Sadness, guilt, regret. But all I felt was relief. Because he was right. I did make a choice. And for once in my life, it wasn't based on what they needed, or what they expected, or how I could avoid making things worse. It was based on what I deserved. People say family is forever, that blood is thicker than water, that you should forgive no matter what, because one day you'll regret it. But here's what no one tells you. Family can be wrong. Family can steal from you. Family can lie to your face, and then blame you for being hurt. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is leave. So I did. And that's where this story ends. No dramatic reunions, no healing hugs, no miracles in a hospital room. Just me, living quietly, honestly, fully, with my bank account secure, my peace intact, and not a single part of me wishing I had stayed. They took $4,600, but I took back my entire life.